Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Manningham Business Network Business Connection meeting. In spite of everything that's going on, we're still here, and it's really encouraging to have so many people on the line and so many people coming on board to listen to Christine and connect and keep it all going, because we are the voice of business in Manningham, and it's good to see that the businesses of Manningham are coming along and getting involved in what we're doing. So to start off, I'd like to just acknowledge some of the sponsors that make all of this happen. We have the Manningham Business, Bendigo Bank in Doncaster East and Templestowe Village. We have our silver sponsors of Quest Doncaster, Audico Lab and Pinpoint Local, and then also our bronze sponsors of Absolute Facts, Bank of Sydney, Bridges Manningham, Computer Age Systems, Costanzo Lawyers, Guttervac, Invoice Money, Ivory Hearing, Expert Proposals, Cadota, the LDB Group, Maverick Mentoring, Officeworks, and SafetyWise Solutions. All right, so without the support of our sponsors and without everyone being members, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and continue to provide the opportunity to share, learn, and grow that we do. So you all would have received the emails about Christine Williams, so I would just like to introduce her, and then anything that I miss out on Christine, just fill the gap in. What we're going to do is Christine's going to talk. If you have questions, type them into the chat box. I'll have you all on mute while Christine's talking, and then we'll do the questions at the end, if that's okay. And if there's any questions that don't get answered, Christine will follow you up, or by all means, contact Christine. Her details will be available at the end of the Zoom meeting. All right, so Christine's known as the go-to girl and a first-class property expert. Christine's clients call her the voice of reason in a hyped-up media world. Over the past 25 years, Christine has accumulated a large property portfolio without giving up her love of travel, fashion, and heels. Along with her team, she works collaboratively with clients, guiding them carefully through each step of building their property portfolio. Her personal touch and incredible depth of knowledge are just some of the reasons why her guidance is so sought after. Everybody, I'd like to introduce Christine Williams, a member of Manningham Business, a good friend of mine, and soon to be your friend as well. Christine, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. So everyone, I'm going to share the screen. We're going to have a presentation, and please bear with me with the IT part, okay? There we go. So everyone's fine? Okay. So what this presentation is, it's a very snapshot of what I normally present. Presentation normally takes about an hour and 15 minutes. And for the last 8 years, I've been presenting for the Bendigo Bank. We took this presentation virtual a couple of weeks ago, and we had over 150 registrations, and over 100 were online. And 2 hours later, we still had over 60 online. So this is a snapshot of it. When Elaine sent out the email, she talked about the 3 things that we're going to talk about, and making sure that we cover your fear, cover your concerns, and understand what you can do during COVID-19 with your tenants if you're a current landlord, okay? So I'll go through this and we'll see what we do. It's going to be based on a case study of a couple that came to me, and this is what we went through once we started talking to them. And we started to talk to them about why having one investment property was going to ruin their financial future and why that became a problem. So I do have a disclaimer, of course, and the disclaimer is I'm not a financial planner, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a legal representative, I am a property strategist, that is my qualifications. However, being an investor for over 25 odd years plus, I believe that I've been there, done that, and my experience inside super purchasing and outside super purchasing, I can answer those questions, but direct you to advisors if I need to. So we have what the ABS are telling us is that 63% of us are going to end up on government welfare after the age of 65. We're going to have people that are going to be meeting St. Peter or St. Paul at that Golden Gate. We're going to have people that are going to be working for the rest of their lives, and we're going to have people that are financially independent or wealthy. And those figures are quite astounding. 63% on government welfare, 26% are going to meet St. Peter or St. Paul, 5% of us are going to work for the rest of our lives. Now, this is a double-edged sword because, you know, I'm 63 and I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing, and I intend to do this for quite a long time more. But there are people that have to work for the rest of their lives, and they're the people that I am concerned about. 4% of us will be financially independent, and I believe that I'm definitely there, okay? 2% of us will be wealthy. What does that mean to you? Well, we start looking at Australian Bureau of Statistics, and this is where I get my information from. And at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, they're telling us that in today's world, that if you own your own home, and just have a basic lifestyle, we actually need $60,000 per annum to live on. Now, $60,000 per annum in some people's eyes are too much. In other people's eyes, it's not enough. When we think about your income per annum, it's totally your figure. It's your figure. No one has to like it or dislike it. It's your figure. But this presentation is based on what the ABS are telling us, okay? So with that, what does that mean? Well, we start to think about getting concerned about what retirement is, and this is exactly why this couple came to me. Not this particular couple on the screen, but the couple at the end of the presentation. And they started looking at what they believed their income to live was, and it was $60,000, but we had to think about their pension. And for a couple, their pension was just under $34,000 a year, and for a single, just under $24,000 a year. And they started to think, how are we going to make the difference up? Well, let's think about it, and let's get an investment property, because that's what we can do. We can own our own home. Along the way, we've saved money and we've decided that we can go out and buy an investment property. And with an investment property, we'll get about $20,000 a year in income, plus the pension, and we'll be fine. And this is where a lot of people have made mistakes. They have thought by having one investment property, plus the pension, 30-odd thousand, we're going to get to the 60,000, we're going to be okay. This is where people make the mistakes of not understanding of how our system works in Australia. And in our system in Australia, we have what's called an asset test. Now, this is very basic. I'm not giving you actuals. You definitely need to be speaking to a financial planner here. But the asset test is based on what you can have and what you can't have before you're entitled to the pension. And what does that look like? Well, we've worked all our lives. We've made the Australian dream. You know, we got married, had family, did what we were going to do, you know, 30, 40 years ago, and that was work, pay off our house and live off the pension and enjoy some things along the way. And we thought, let's get an investment property and that'll give us some extra money. Well, we do know that by having an investment property and owning our own home, we go under what's called an asset test. And to make this the long and the short, but just give you an idea, in Australia, if you own your own home and if you have assets more than 860 to 890,000, the pension actually might be denied. It might be denied to the point that you can't get the pension, but you've ended up with other assets. And those other assets include your super, an investment property, and any other income-bearing asset that you may have, shares, you know, antiquities or whatever. So we start to think, well, if we're not going to have the pension and if we haven't acquired another income-bearing assets, or our super is certainly not sitting at about 1.5 million when we retire, we're not going to have the pension. And so this is where people come to me and they sort of have a light bulb. The light bulb goes on and they're anywhere between 10 and 15 years out of working, and they say, what can we do? How can we do it? Well, my vehicle for my extra income is my investment property portfolio. And up the top of the screen, you'll see that there's 3 little houses. And one of the mantras I have is that be free with 3. And the reason why I say that is because if we had 3 investment properties generating $20,000 to $25,000 a year after expenses, that's our $60,000, and we own our own home, because we're not going to get any Centrelink pension, or we may not even be entitled to the healthcare cut. So when we think about it, we think about, well, how old am I? How long am I going to work? And what else is the ABS telling us? Well, the ABS are telling us that in Australia, the average life span for female is 91. The average lifespan for male is 85. So you may think that you want to retire at 60 or 65, But are you understanding that you've got to fund anywhere between 20, 25 or even 30 years worth of lifestyle after you retire if you haven't started preparing for it? Now, this is not a fear tactic. This is just figures. This is just the world that we live in. And this is the things that we need to start thinking about. And as I said, most people come to me 45, 40, 50. They come to me at 55 and they think it's too late, but it's not. So I really just go down the process of the strategy that I've started calling the 10-year commitment. I'm a buy and hold girl. I'm not a get rich quick scheme girl. I'm not a flip girl. I'm not a renovator girl. I'm a girl that wants to build a property portfolio that generates income to give me the lifestyle that I want in my retirement. And as I said, the $60,000 per annum is what the ABS are telling us is a basic income. And when I talk about a basic income, we're talking about we own our own home, or we're just about on the way to owning our own home, but we need at least $10,000 a year before we start because we own our own home. What does that mean? Well, we have a home. We know that we live in a beautiful suburb, and we know that our LGA, our councils are keeping our suburbs clean. We have rubbish collection. We pay rates. We've got parks and gardens. We've got close amenities, community centres. So we've got rates. We generally have insurances on our home. During a home, we have some sort of maintenance. And so before you get up in the morning and put your feet on the floor, you need $10,000 before you even start. So that doesn't take up much from a $34,000 pension, does it? The next thing that we need to think about is that the ABS are telling us in that $60,000 is that will only cover our food, our clothing, utilities, and we don't even get to go away for a weekend. Now, as I said, some people are saying that the $60,000 is way too much for them and they could cope. But I don't know about you guys, but we've got 7 grandchildren. There will be more eventually. And I love to travel. Peter introduced me and said I love travel, my family and heels. Well, in ISO, I must admit, I've only ever worn heels twice in the last 6 months because I decided to do that walking around my own home. But today, I'm dressed from the waist up with jeans, to tell you the truth, and flat shoes on the bottom. But travel, shopping, heels, fashion, and then, of course, my family is my goal, and this is why I do it. And we know that $60,000 in our household is not going to be enough. So how did we get there? Well, I got there by building a property portfolio. We can either make a decision here by staying with the pack, following the sheep and just doing what the sheep do and end up being 63% of our population and ending up on government welfare and not enjoying the life that we want. We can either keep following the sheep and doing the same thing, or we can change our minds, stop, think, make a decision and change the way that we're going to be doing things. We don't have to make this a fear tactic. There's no right or wrong way here. It's more about what you want to achieve. And this is where you really do need to be speaking to, your financial planner, your accountant, your advisors in this space about how much money do I really need. Now, when I speak to my clients, I have what's called a lifestyle forecaster. And we talk about what's important to you in retirement. And a lot of people tell me that they like volunteering, they have hobbies, they like going out for dinner, they like going to the theatre, they love doing things other than what I do. They love their pets. And so we've got Fluffy the cat and we've got Ben the dog, and they need to go to the vet, once every six months. They might need, vaccines or immunisation. They need to be fed. We might have a couple in the family that love golf and they're members of golf clubs that, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for membership. You may want to be a volunteer. And we do know that being a volunteer, we all end up taking a plate. And a plate of food costs money. Not only does it cost money, it's petrol in your own car to get there. So one of the things I ask my clients to do is when they're thinking about how much money they really do want in retirement, it's not about food and clothing and utilities and rates. It's about the things you love doing today. And if you want to maintain the lifestyle that you have today by doing the things that you want to do today, that's really the numbers that you should be thinking about. You need to be clarifying what that is, what that lifestyle is. So we're going to go to a case study now. And we're going to go to a couple that's clients of mine, Paula and Colin. People in this room may know this couple. They live in South Morang. And they came to me nearly 8 years ago. And we were having a conversation one day about why and why not, and how could you, and how could I possibly have a property portfolio, and how did it happen, and all that, those type of things. And we started looking at them and their lifestyle. So I'm very specific about, I only take on 25 new clients a year because I do want to stay boutique. I do want to be the person that holds their hand, together with my team behind me doing admin and follow up. But my clients become my friends. I'm not frightened of anything that when something goes wrong, I don't run away, because when you invest in property, things go wrong. And when these people become my friends, it's because we've worked with them to understand them and understand their true wants, their true needs, and uncover those real concerns. You know, when you go to the doctor, unless you're prepared to technically undress, how can the doctor actually tell you what is wrong with you, or what tests you need, or how to move forward? If you have an accountant, unless you're prepared to undress in front of your accountant, regardless of whether or not you're running a business or an employer or an employee or a subcontractor, how can they possibly give you the advice that they need to give you? Same as a legal representative or a financial planner. So I'm no different. I ask you to undress in front of me, and I take that on board. So here we have Paula and Colin came into my world, and they wanted to know how could they maintain their lifestyle. Colin loves the outdoors and gardening and fishing, you know, typical guy, and cars. Paula has an amazing craft obsession. She's overseas, not this year, unfortunately, but she goes overseas and she does beading, and she's a white collar worker. They have 3 adult children who are now married, and they have their first grandchild, and all of their children have purchased properties. Along the way, in helping Paula and Colin, I started to help her adult children. So therefore, my business has become generational. I now not only help the mum and dads of the world, I'm now helping their adult children. So I thought it was 2 generations, but I've actually got clients where I've helped the grandparents, their children, and their children coming up again. My youngest client was 23 and my eldest client was 62 when they first started investing in property. But here we have Paula and Colin, and we looked at their situation, and we looked at the B3 with 3. And the B3 with 3 comes into play with not just investing in property. We look at all the asset classes, and we know that one of their superannuation, because these guys are employees, they're not self-employed, but we know with these guys with their working life that their superannuation is going to be classed to me as an income-bearing asset equivalent to an investment property. So we know that they've got that sort of asset class sitting on the side that's going to be bubbling along. And so in this case, they only need 2 investment properties. They have purchased 1 outside super, which is really helping Paula's tax deductions because she's the highest income earner in their household. And then they've purchased 1 inside super, and their super is positively cash flowed and gaining major momentum. Now, when we started talking about their strategy, of course, they visited their accountant and financial planner to confirm that everything that I had suggested would suit them, because their retirement income was based on $80,000, and they both intend finishing work before they turn 65, and they're very healthy. She's a walker, he's a walker, she's really into, you know, exercise and stuff like that, just not like me. But, you know, they're really planning to be on this earth until they're, you know, well into their 90s. And they want to enjoy their adult children, their growing family and grandchildren, their love of travel, and their love of travel around Australia. You know, they're caravanning, and when they go overseas, they go 5-star. They want to enjoy that. So we really had to work backwards from their hobbies, their love, their family, and what is that going to look like, and how are we going to be able to provide 30 years worth of income. And 80,000 was their mark. It was really important for them to know and understand that their super was definitely a component of that, and their 2 investment properties are going to be bubbling along. People may be asking, why would they purchase 1 inside super and 1 outside super? And this is where you do speak to your financial planner and accountant. And in that line of work is that the benefits of purchasing inside super and the benefits of purchasing outside super, and also the constraints of doing both of those strategies. When I talk about super, we've got property in super myself. I'm a trustee of our self-managed super fund. And the reason why I started purchasing in super was because the benefit that we negate capital gains tax after the youngest person in the fund turns 67 in my case. And if we sell that property and the funds, the capital gain go back into super, we don't pay capital gains tax. But of course, the tax deductions along the way are very different. The depreciation along the way is very different to if you purchase outside super. So in Paula and Colin's instance, and because of the income that Paula earns, it was best for them to have outside super and inside super. And we talk about what that strategy is. So they're just a typical couple that I work with. I work with singles. I work with couples without children. I work with, as I've said, helping helping their adult children get into property, their first property, which is never ever going to be anyone's forever home in today's world, and making sure that that first property can be an investment property when they decide to move to the next property or use it as a stepping stone. And that's exactly what I'm doing with a couple of Paula's sons and daughter-in-laws. Their original home, which was in the northern suburbs, is now an investment property. They're now gaining all the incentives from a tax deductions perspective. One couple's gone and moved interstate because of work, and they're renting up there, and they've purchased a second investment property for tax deductions. The other guys have purchased their first home, taken all the first home owner incentives, and eventually those properties will be investment properties as well when they move on to a larger home, or you take the capital gain to have a great deposit on a bigger home, or continue to invest in property. It becomes a lifestyle choice, and it becomes a strategy to create income. Can you just give me a heads up on the time, please, Pete?
Yes, you have. Yeah, you got another 5-10 minutes if you need it with
Fabulous.
questions.
Thank you. So the question for me to you is, can you live on $20,000 per annum? If we have one investment property, less all expenses, it's getting $25,000 a year in income, regardless of whether or not you own it. And it's definitely a conversation, and this, I may not have enough time to go through that. It may come up in question zone. But can you live on $20,000 per annum? You've got your own home, which negates from your assets as far as Centrelink is concerned, but you may end up with over $1 million in super when you retire, or you may have other income-bearing assets, shares and so forth. And so therefore you're negated from Centrelink pension, okay? Once again, have the conversation with your financial planner. But if you do have one investment property and it is giving you $25,000 a year in income, allow $5,000, just for rates and insurances, because your tenant would be, contributing to most everything else. Can you live on $20,000 per annum? And will your super provide the rest of it to get you up to 60? The decision here is, are you going to be asset rich and cash poor, or do you want to be asset rich and cash rich as well? We really need to start thinking about, have we got time? And I've written a couple of books, and it's based around the strategies that I've created and what I can do, and it's called the 10-year commitment. And I'm very happy to share that with everybody. If you would like a copy, I can send the soft copy out through Elaine, and she can send it out to you if you like. But how do we make sure that what goes wrong with an investment property? Because guys, something's going to go wrong. And this is my strategy. This is my ICE. This is my in case of an emergency. This is my cash buffer. This is my Mojo account. And this is how I've worked it out. Now, this didn't come into play just because I started investing in property. This came into play because originally I was married, then I was divorced, and then I remarried, and I had to think about money and what if something went wrong. Because in life, something will go wrong every day. And here we are in COVID-19 and nobody expected it. So if everyone would like to grab a pen and paper, this is the strategy in case of an emergency. If you decide to move forward with any decision, whether or not that be in a relationship or whether or not that you choose to purchase an income-bearing asset, this is the test. The first thing that you need to think about is this something that I want to do? And if it is something that you want to do, we have to put plans in place. But you need to walk away from that decision, from saying yes or no, until you've slept 3 nights in a row after thinking about your decision. And if you can sleep 3 nights in a row, not worrying that the decision you're about to make is going to be right or wrong, you've passed the 3-night sleep test. If you are awake for the next 3 nights in a row, tossing and turning, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right relationship I should enter into? Is this the right investment property I should be buying? Is this the shares that I should be buying? Is that the car that I should be buying? If you are tossing and turning 3 nights in a row, your gut is telling you it is the wrong decision. So please walk away. It's that simple. If in actual fact you're awake and you're excited because it's just the best thing since sliced bread, it's the right decision. Your gut is one of the biggest indicators that has never ever failed me. And when I've decided, no, my head's telling me no, but my heart's telling me yes, and I haven't done it, I've actually made the wrong decision, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing that I'd like you to really consider is the next part that you would write down. When we have a concern, we voice that concern. And as an investment property specialist, 9 times out of 10, my intended clients, potential clients say to me 3 things. My biggest concern about investing in property is I'm not going to get a tenant, I'm going to lose my job, and what if interest rates go up? Now, they are 3 statements. Very true statements, very true concerns, but that's all they are statements. We have to turn those statements into a tangible amount of money. And once we know that tangible amount of money, we can start making decisions. So, what if I lose my job? Now, my thought process there is that if you're on $100,000 a year, this is just making it really easy to make it quick maths. And if I believed it took me another 3 months to get another job, so this is you know what you're doing, you know the industry you're in, you know how long it's going to take you to get another position. And if it took me 3 months, I've lost $25,000. If I lose my job, the fear factor is $25,000. The intangible was if I lose my job, the tangible is $25,000. Please write down $25,000. What if I don't get a tenant and I don't get a tenant for 12 weeks? If you don't get a tenant for 12 weeks, it's the wrong property. But what if I don't get a tenant for 12 weeks? Once again, it's a tangible conversation, but the tangible is if I was getting $400 a week, it's $4,800. So put down $4,800. What if interest rates go up? Well, in my world and speaking to brokers and anyone from the bank, they're very comfortable that things are going to be set for the next 2 to 3 years, but it could happen. You work that figure out with your accountant and or your broker. What if interest rates did go up by 1%? Guys, when I bought my first house, I was paying 17.5%. So looking at interest rates below 3%, I'm just laughing all the way to the bank, okay? Because money is so cheap at the moment, it's not funny. But what if interest rates go up? What if the tenant accidentally or maliciously damaged my property? Well, it's as simple as the right landlord's insurance. And there's landlord insurance and there's landlord insurance. And unless you're paying anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 in landlord insurance, you haven't got the right landlord insurance. So here I am, I've talked about $30,000. I've equated my fears back to a dollar amount. And if you are about to embark on investing in property, you need a buffer of about $30,000. And do you have to go and borrow $30,000? Well, if you've got the equity and the borrowing capacity, borrow it, stick it in an offset account. And if anything goes wrong, when something goes wrong, you can sleep at night because the funds are there. If you lost your job, but you've still got a tenant and the investment property is doing well, who's going to pay your own bills? Who's going to pay your own mortgage? Who's going to pay those private school fees? After school curriculum? Who's going to put petrol in the car and who's going to put food on the table? Your cash buffer is actually about your own lifestyle. It's not really about investing in property. It's a cash buffer. It's something that you should hold very dear. We know that Scott Pate, advocates 3 months mortgage repayments. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's a stepping stone. It's the $20,000 to $30,000 that makes you work. So we're in COVID-19, and I have to tell you, I never knew that this was going to happen. And if someone did, they are amazing, okay? But I always talk about what could go wrong. And when I'm asking my clients what could go wrong, they give me their fears. And we have that cash buffer in place. My clients, none of my clients have had to offer free rent to any of their tenants. I've had a half a dozen people, finish properties this year and they had tenants in the middle of lockdown, and they had many, many applications. Why? Because I've actually put another level of safety barrier in. When we're looking for tenants today because of COVID-19, and I never knew it was going to happen, we're actually looking at industry-based employment. And my clients' tenants are coming from 4 industries. They're coming from education, medical, essential services, and construction. And we know that those tenants are very much not just cashed up and can pay rent, but their employment is stable. And so we don't have to go into that moratorium of giving our tenants 6 months rent free and be a mum and dad that's paying 2 lots of mortgages and not rent coming in. But even if we were, if we actually had that cash buffer in place in the first place, we wouldn't be worrying about it, because this is a medical crisis. It may turn into a financial crisis, but that cash buffer is going to help us. So I hope that helped. This normally is an hour and 15 minutes. I've really tried to reduce it. I'm very happy to take questions. I'm very happy I offer a 30-minute complimentary phone call, Zoom call, to see whether or not I'm a person that you'd like to work with. I do only take on 25 clients a year. This year, it hasn't happened because of COVID-19, but never mind. But I can get on a plane on Monday and pay $5,000 for 2 of us to go into quarantine and then spend a month up in Darwin. I'm comfortable with my lifestyle, and I'm comfortable with the decisions I've made, and I'm comfortable with how I teach my clients to have a good night's sleep and enjoy creating the wealth that they need to create the lifestyle that they want, so that they become asset rich and cash rich by making the decision by being free with 3. Thank you, Peter.
Christine, thank you very much. That's brilliant. Do you have a slide so you can let people know how to get in touch with you?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay, that's okay. That's all good.
Elaine will do that for me.
We'll send something out to everybody. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to pose to Christine while we have her here? Yes, Dakesh.
Yes, I think thank you very much, Christine. This is very, very enlightening in relation to the client sort of approach. I must say, the 30,000 sometimes goes higher, which you were just talking about. There's the body corporate fees. There's other sort of requirements that goes with it, and a holistic approach is always the case in this process. And I would be, I'm interested to sort of catch up with you, obviously, at the same time, and just work out, what are the things that may be sort of affecting, the sort of the details around it, because the devil is in the detail generally with all of these things.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And yes, the 30,000 is just an example. I must admit, I've got one client who did lose his job for 12 months and he was on 175,000, and they've got $175,000 in an offset account before they invested in property, and he's enjoying his sleep, and they've contacted me for their second one. So yes, the 30,000 was an example. Thank you, Dakesh.
Yeah.
We see this time and time and again with clients generally, this is what the mortgage broker has given and this is what we can afford, but kind of the unknowns are never calculated in the equation. And that's what you're trying to highlight in today's discussion. With our clients, it's the same scenario. I mean, I want a dream home and I want a dream sort of facility, but really, can you really afford it? And it's not affordability is always very easy because cash is cheap at the moment, but it's kind of the ongoing maintenance, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years going forward.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dakesh. Anyone else have anything they'd like to ask Christine? Look at that. You've answered everyone's questions. Pauline.
Yeah, just a quick one, Christine. Do you subscribe to the view that a lot of property brokers have, is that you should invest in cities rather than regional or?
Oh, no. We've just settled on land in Ballarat. Okay, so we'll be building ourselves in Ballarat. I purchased the land 2 years ago. It was titled early. Well, we expected to be titled last year, but COVID stopped it. So, I'm 63 and I'm still borrowing money and I'm still adding to my property portfolio. I must admit, I still want another one, okay? But in saying that, no, I've just purchased land in Ballarat. For about the last 6 or 7 years, I've been talking about the Golden Triangle and in Victoria. My property portfolio is on the eastern seaboard of Australia. I have property in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. I did have property in Tasmania, but I sold that, okay? I've been talking about in Victoria, I've been talking about the Golden Triangle for about 6 or 7 years now. And it was 6 or 7 years that I started talking about it. It was probably about 5 to 6 years ago that we started investing in there. And the Golden Triangle was Geelong, Bendigo and Ballarat. And with COVID-19, regional Victoria is just going through the roof. Land is just being sold 2 years in advance, and land has gone up incredibly because of COVID-19. We know now that we can work from home, and the sea and tree change has, it's just catapulted in the last 6 months. It really has. In the first lockdown, in the first week of lockdown, 20,000 people left Victoria. We've already had over 60,000 people that have put in applications to relocate in New South Wales and Queensland. So we're losing people out of Victoria, but that's very, I mean, that's a lot higher than normal, but there is always interstate transient relocation. And so the answer to your question, Pauline, is as long as the regional city covers, I have a PIES formula, which once I said it's not in this presentation, but I cover it under population, infrastructure, employment, supply and demand. And population is transient, interstate, suburb, international. Infrastructure, it's not just government infrastructure, it's private infrastructure, and it's a private infrastructure that really is the key. And then employment, what's the employment like? And then supply and demand. And just in Ballarat and Bendigo, for example, Ballarat Hospital has been 4 times, it's actually been renovated, increased and doubled. And the education sector between Bendigo and Ballarat is phenomenal. And the government hub is being relocated to Bendigo and Ballarat. They're relocating nearly 50,000 people. The government is relocating nearly 50,000 people just into those 2 cities. And we've known about this for the last 5 years. So, you know, it's definitely, it doesn't have to be, I'm not, and I don't like inner city apartments. I never have. So that's one of my bugbears. But yes, it doesn't have to be capital city in each state. It can be major regional cities. So New South Wales, it's Newcastle, okay, and also the Central Coast, all the way up to the border. In Queensland, it is definitely the right areas in the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast and Townsville. And if you want to ask me about any other capital city or regional area in Australia, I'm supposed to be in Western Australia and South Australia, but I never got there. So I'm very much across Australia when it comes to investing in property. I hope that answered your question, Pauline. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Anyone else? Fantastic. Christine, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and your expertise with us. It really makes a big difference. Everybody, we're going to be sending you the contact details for Christine, so you'll be able to get in touch. Take advantage of the opportunity to have a talk to her, and she, as she has here, will generously share her knowledge with you and ensure that you're looked after. Because there's one thing I know about Christine, that she's here to help. It's not just about making money, it's about making sure that yeah, that we're all, you know, connected well, and yeah, she'll look after you like a friend. So that'd be great. So Christine, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. If you want to take yourselves off mute or just express some thanks, lots of hands going up for you. There you go, Christine. It's a different world again on a Zoom call, but thanks very much.